Okay, this will be a very short video on Chapter 10. So I'm just going to hit the high points and then you can practice. So Chapter 10 is fractions as measures. So if you look at a fraction as a measure of distance, so under the measure interpretation, a fraction is usually the measure aligned to some interval or some region. So you can be doing static and dynamic measurement. A unit of measure can always be divided up into finer, and this other word should also be finer. So cross out that D, finer subunits, so that you may take an accurate reading, as accurate a reading as you need to. We talk about fractions as measure. The focus is on successfully partitioning the unit. Okay, the goals of successful partitioning. At first, students' equal segments do not look so equal. That's going to be okay, because you want to have them have a good sense of relative placement of fractions on the number line. So understanding fractions as measure, the number line is the way to do it. It will help them really to develop a good number sense, because it's all based on the density property of rational numbers. The property states that you can always get as close as you like to any point with a fraction. So you know that your students understand fractions when they are comfortable with successive partitioning, and they're able to find any number of fractions between two given fractions, and they're able to compare fractions. Okay, units, equivalent fractions, comparisons. The smaller the subunit used to measure the distance, the more of those subunits will be needed. Likewise, the larger the subunit, the fewer that will be needed to cover the distance. Okay, so it's all about the number line and about successful partitioning. So fraction operations is the last thing. So through successful partitioning, children quickly learn about equivalents and common denominators. Note that addition in the measurement of interpretation of fractions also provides a conceptual basis for later work with vectors. So, this part is very, very important. Every part of this fraction is important. So, another point about giving them materials to work with. Even in our textbook, when they have us figure out how much oil, for example, is in the tank, is in a container, it's very difficult to do that and to do it accurately because nothing's really marked. So be aware of that as you struggle with these problems. Remember that your kids will also struggle with those kind of problems if it's not marked out so that you can easily work with it, or if it's big enough to be able to see it and perhaps put a ruler down and do some accurate measuring. But it's really all about having them understand the relative placement of fractions to one another and being able to get those in-between numbers, and knowing that as you do that, you make your denominator bigger and bigger and bigger because the piece that you're cutting is smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, so now you can go look at the activities.